stopped working. Nama Shreshtam Manumapi Satchiputram Atra Swarupam Rupam Tastik Rajam Urupurim Maturim Gostavitam Radha Kundam Girivaram Maho Radhika Madhavasam Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Shri Gurum Tam Natosmi Jayam Vishnupad Śrīla Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Gosvāmī Maharaj Śrīla Gurudev Ki Jai. So we're reading from Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta, Madhya-līlā chapter 2. Oh no, we've finished chapter 2. We're on chapter 3 this morning. Madhya-līlā chapter 3, where the chronology of the Caitanya-caritāmṛta re-begins after the author, Kṛṣṇadāsa Kavirāja Gosvāmī, takes something of a he interrupts the chronology to record Mahaprabhu's end Leela, his Vipralamba Bhav, the feelings of separation of Srimati Radharani for Krishna. So, what is chapter 1 of Madhya-līlā? It's a summary, right? So Madhya-līlā chapter 1 is a summary of the Antya-līlā, entitled The Later Pastimes of the Lord. So, fearing that he would not live long enough to finish the Caitanya-caritāmṛta, to give an exhaustive account of Mahaprabhu's life, he summarized it in chapter 1. Having finished the Adi-līlā, he summarized the Antya-līlā, and then he devoted a special chapter to Mahaprabhu's ecstasies. That's chapter 2. So he takes time, he gets to the point of Mahaprabhu's sannyas, that's the midway point of Mahaprabhu's life, 24. Mahaprabhu passed away at age 48. So halfway, he leaves Navadvip, takes sannyas, and then instead of diving into the Madhya-līlā proper, Kavirāja Gosvāmī summarizes the Antya-līlā and describes in one chapter the Vipralamba Gambhira Leela of Mahaprabhu, the Mahabhav ecstasies. And now in chapter 3, he re-begins his account, starting with, you could say, the Madhya-līlā proper. Although technically this is part of the Madhya-līlā, it's not describing Mahaprabhu's middle portion of life. So does that make it technically the Madhya-līlā or technically not the Madhya-līlā? I don't know. It's an interesting question, isn't it? In reality, it's not Mahaprabhu's Madhya-līlā, but it is technically the Madhya-līlā of the Caitanya-caritāmṛta as a book. But it is not Mahaprabhu's middle pastimes. They're summarizing his later pastimes. So now Kavirāja Gosvāmī, in chapter 3, he re-begins his account of Mahaprabhu's life. And it is entitled Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Stay at the House of Advaita Acharya. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. In his Amrita Pravahavasya, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives the following summary study of the 3rd chapter. After accepting the sannyas order at Katwa, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu travelled continuously for 3 days in Radhadesh. And by the trick of Nityananda Prabhu, he eventually came to the western side of Shantipur. He eventually came to the western side of Shantipur. There are those who dispute Mahaprabhu's birthplace as we know it today. It's known as Mahaprabhu's Janmastan. Janma means birth, and stan means a location. So we know the location of Mahaprabhu's birth today as, we call it the Yoga Pit in Mayapur. You go up the road, Bhakti Siddhanta Marg, further up from the ISKCON Mandir, and you will get to the location of the Yoga Pit, birthplace of Gauranga Mahaprabhu. There's also nearby, there's a temple called the Caitanya-caritāmṛta. This is like the spiritual heartland of the Gaudiya Math. And this was where, this was where Saraswati Thakur performed his intense bhajan and derived the inspiration to go and preach rather than remain in solitude. The birthplace of Gauranga Mahaprabhu, as discovered by Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Previous to that, the birthplace of Mahaprabhu was considered lost. But the location, the broad general location, was not thought to be on the Mayapur side of the Ganga, but on the Navadvip side of the Ganga, which is the western side. Whereas Mayapur is on the eastern side. The Yoga Pit, the location known as Mayapur today, is on the eastern side of the Ganga. And so those that say, I remember once back in the day at Mulamat, Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat, Navadvip, we're sitting on the veranda in the morning hearing a class from Janardhan Maharaj. He's giving the morning class on Param Gurudev's Samadhi Mandir. We all know the famous setting, right? Samadhi Mandir, it's the morning in Navadvip, and a class is Caitanya-caritāmṛta class being given by someone. So Janardhan Maharaj is there, and he's giving a Caitanya-caritāmṛta class. We're sitting listening. And some local or Indian pilgrims come, and they arrive as they do, wandering around the temple, paying their respects to the deities. And they come up and they stand and they observe the Westerners sitting there on Param Gurudev's Samadhi veranda, listening to the class. And then one man steps forward and he says, "You think birthplace of Mahaprabhu is in Mayapur, but it's not." He's quite adamant and loud. And Janardhan Maharaj essentially tells him to go away. Janardhan Maharaj is very straightforward, so he tells him to go away. The man is like, he's getting quite worked up about the fact that Mahaprabhu's birthplace is not in Mayapur, it's on this side of the Ganga in Navadvip. There's a place called Prachin Mayapur, some old place, and they think that is the birthplace of Mahaprabhu. At one stage there was even a temple built there, which was washed away by the Ganga many years ago. I'm not exactly sure how many, between 100 and 200 years perhaps. So this was one reason why, you say, Bhaktivinoda Thakur began to distance himself from some devotees he had previously been affiliated with, including his Diksha Guru. His name was Bipin Bihari. This was one reason. They had a particular interest in having Mahaprabhu's birthplace in a particular location. Its holy sites bring certain benefits. People visit, they give money, etc. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he, by his own efforts and research, and then by the mystical endorsement of Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, he identified Mahaprabhu's birthplace as being completely on the other side of the Ganga, at Mayapur proper, which at that time was a very remote location in the woods, in the forest, near a place called Balal Dighi. It was a place called Balal Dighi, nearby to the old location of a king called Lakshman Sen. There's old archaeological fortifications there old infrastructure, the king's palace, from many, many years ago, maybe a century, maybe a millennium ago. And recently they've been excavated. Previous to that, you could go there and they're all covered. Small bits would stick out, but they're all covered in earth. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur discovered this site and established it as the authentic birthplace of Gauranga Mahaprabhu, but others did not agree. It's quite controversial, in fact. It still is in some sectors. Some people don't accept it. They think it's on the other side of the Ganga. But when we look at certain evidences, and there is, some people have gathered all of the evidences in support of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's identifying of this location at Mayapur as being Mahaprabhu's birth site. And one of these evidences is noted here, where Mahaprabhu, we all know, it's not in contention that Mahaprabhu, when he leaves his home early in the morning to take sannyas, he swims across the Ganga. This is not disagreed upon by anyone. Everyone agrees Mahaprabhu leaves home and swims the Ganga. And then he walks, following the route, following the course of the Ganga, upstream. He walks upstream to where? Katwa, and takes sannyas. So if you look at the map, Katwa is clearly on the western bank of the Ganga. So if Mahaprabhu swims across the Ganga, then he must be swimming from the eastern bank to the western bank. Kind of clear that his birthplace must be on the east. There is no history showing the Ganga moving over Katwa and Katwa relocating from east to west or whatever like this. So it's just one evidence in support of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's establishing Mahaprabhu's birth site at Mayapur. Establishing the location at Mayapur. So, another point here says, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu travelled continuously for 3 days in Radha Desh by the trick of Nityananda Prabhu, and by the trick of Nityananda Prabhu, eventually came to the western side of Shantipur. The western side of Shantipur, western side of the Ganga at Shantipur, or to Shantipur. So, Radha Desh, some people think, oh, it means Radharani, but it doesn't. It's a completely different word. They're not the same word. It's actually like Radha. We have in our Tulsi Arti song, Durata Firata Mahamuni Jnani. Durata. See that D, the diacritic dot underneath it. D-H-U-R with a diacritic dot underneath it, I think. A-T-A. Durata. This is the same R. Radha. It's the same letter, same consonant, same Sanskrit letter as in this word, Radhadesh. So it's not Radha as in the land of Radhadesh. If it was the Srimati Radharani, it would be like the land of Srimati Radharani. But it's not that. It's just a mundane name. It doesn't have any special connection to Srimati Radharani. Rara. Durata. Dudat. We can look at that word later. But it's the same letter. I think it's a D. Durata. It's a D with a diacritic dot underneath. Anyway, that's worthy of note. Continuing. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was induced to believe that the river Ganges was the Yamuna. When he was worshipping the sacred river, Advaita Prabhu appeared with a boat. Advaita Prabhu asked him to take his bath in the Ganges and took him to his own house. There, at the house of Advaita Prabhu, all the Navadvip devotees, along with Mother Sachi Devi, came to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This house was located at Shantipur. Mother Sachi Devi cooked for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu, and at that time there were many joking exchanges between Advaita Prabhu and Nityananda Prabhu. Jai Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Advaita Acharya and Nityananda Prabhu had a curious relationship. Sometimes it even seemed to enter the domain of enmity, apparently. We'll see this later in Caitanya-caritāmṛta as well, sometimes. They're bathing in the... What is a tank at Puri? The bathing tank. Something Sarovara. What is it? Tick, 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 tick. It's not coming into my mind. Anyway. I just can't recall it right now. But anyway, so Advaita Prabhu and Nityananda Prabhu had a very peculiar relationship, which sometimes appeared to be fractious to outside observers. Advaita Prabhu was like, who is this avadut with all of these eccentricities? Because Nityananda Prabhu was a very eccentric character, with all this flamboyance and sometimes wild behavior. A genuine avadut will behave in ways that are not considered socially acceptable. But because their consciousness is firmly positioned in the anti-material or the spiritual, then nothing material, indulgence in anything material, has no effect on them. It is not that their consciousness is influenced, contaminated through what we would see as a kind of a vishaya or a sensual activity. It does not apply. It's a very peculiar condition, the avadut. But it's not, of course, to be imitated. Although there are some charlatans that like to imitate it. Because the avadut, if someone is a genuine avadut, then they'll be recognized, their behavior will be recognized as spiritual, even though it's seemingly material. When Swami Maharaj Prabhupada was in India, in the early days, he returned to India, established some temples in the West. And actually, he returned to India very early on. So it was probably, he returned to India in 1968 first, I believe. Or even 67. 67. First, to Vrindavan. And then at a later date, he began visiting India and staying longer in India, establishing temples, etc. So perhaps in the very early 70s, late 60s, some of his disciples, his fresh young recruits, they were out and about mingling with the Indians and speaking to one Indian. He's saying, yes, I know Krishna, I know all of this. And then he lights up a cigarette and smoking his cigarette. They go, but hang on a minute, if you know everything, then what is this cigarette habit? What's that about? He said, oh, I am avadut. I am avadut. And they're like, oh, that sounds interesting. And they're like, so you can smoke a cigarette and be like fully perfect in Krishna consciousness? And he said, yes, avadut. And they went back they didn't know what it meant. So they went back to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, what's an avadut? We saw an avadut smoking a cigarette. And Prabhupada said, he's not an avadut. Don't worry about that. And Prabhupada explained to them what an avadut is and assured them that this gentleman that they encountered was not the real thing. But Nityananda Prabhu was a genuine avadut. So it's said that even if you see Nityananda Prabhu engaging in what are seemingly prohibited activities, bottle of wine, Muslim girl, saying Muslim girl is a euphemism for like a lady of the night or whatever. So then you're not to make any judgment, because the avadut is completely beyond all of this. There is actually there is no fall of consciousness. There is no sensual drive or impetus. It's a peculiar status of the Avadut. So Advaita Prabhu, who is very conservative by nature, Advaita Acharya, he was a teacher of the scriptures, a guru of the wider community. He was a big Acharya, very famous, very well respected, one of the preeminent scholars and educators of North India at that time, Advaita Acharya. Like on the same status as Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And so he saw this kind of wild Nityananda Prabhu, who always would dress wild as well. He would dress as a gopa, often. Sometimes he wouldn't even dress. Sometimes he liked to wander around in the nude. So very kind of unorthodox, socially uninhibited behaviors. Kind of the opposite to Advaita Acharya's conservative orthodoxy. So they would clash sometimes, seemingly. And people would sometimes misinterpret this. That is why in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Vrindavan Das Thakur, he addresses this issue. Because there were some that were seeing this interaction between Advaita Acharya and Nityananda Prabhu, and they were drawing the wrong conclusions. Or they were taking sides, saying, oh, Advaita Acharya Prabhu is right, Nityananda Prabhu is wrong, etc. So Vrindavan Das Thakur very clearly and very emphatically cautions us, if you see any kind of dissension between higher devotees, you're not to take sides. You don't take sides. You accept it as something that is necessary in the execution of their services, serving some kind of purpose, but it's not one's right or need to try and explore it, understand it, dissect it, whatever, analyze it and take sides. That's not the appropriate position to take. So Vrindavan Das is very clear on this. Of course, Vrindavan Das is a disciple of Nityananda Prabhu. He's very intimately aware of all of these pastimes. That is essentially what they are, Līla. Some Līlas cannot be appreciated so easily. To appreciate certain Līlas requires a certain level of spiritual conscious advancement. And if you're not at that level, and you try and understand what it is, you may misunderstand it. You may misconstrue it. And in doing so, there's not just the danger of confusion, but there's also the danger of taking sides and committing some kind of judgment offense, making an incorrect, erroneous judgment. And that is the danger. There may be some aparat involved in that. So Vrindavan Das is very clear in his caution. Do not take sides in such a scenario. But in the Caitanya-caritāmṛta we begin to see this. This is the first instance of this dynamic playing out. Nityananda Prabhu arrives quite suddenly and unexpectedly in Navadvip to the house of one Nandanacharya. And of course he is immediately recognized and embraced and brought into the group by Gauranga Mahaprabhu himself. But still he is kind of new, socially speaking, he is new to this Navadvip group that have known Nimai Pandit since birth. He's growing up. They've seen him go through stages of being the kind of arrogant, young, cocky scholar and the handsome, young, married, starting his own school, going on his tour around Bengal, getting married, and then going to Gaya and undergoing a powerful spiritual epiphany when he meets his guru, Ishwarapuri. So they're witnessing all of these changes of Mahaprabhu growing up. He returns to Navadvip, a changed man, a devotee of Krishna. And all of these, Srivas Pandit and Advaita Acharya and the other younger, and Murari Gupta, and then the other Mahaprabhu's friends, his same age, Mukunda, Gadadhara, Jagadananda, etc. they all recognize Mahaprabhu as divine. And the Sankirtan movement then begins when Nityananda Prabhu arrives proper. But he arrives much later, so he's a new addition to this group, although, as said, immediately recognized and embraced by Mahaprabhu. But still, there's some interaction. Advaita people were going, where is this Nityananda Prabhu from? Because also his history, like if we know Nityananda Prabhu's history when he was a young boy of maybe 9 or 12, in Ekachakra, one sannyasi came through and just collected him and took him off. That was it. So he was kind of not abducted, but scooped up from home, donated very, unwillingly by his father, who would donate their son. But also his father could not deny the sannyasi, who's asking for his son and charity. Being a brahmana, he could not refuse charity. So of course it was devastating, but Nityananda Prabhu was then collected, joined the sannyasi as a young boy, and just went off on whatever sannyasi does, touring non-stop, not staying for longer than 3 days in any place, etc. All around India to all the tirthas, visiting all the other saints and sadhus and Vaishnavas, etc. So Nityananda Prabhu had a very unorthodox life, pulled up from his family roots, disconnected from his family roots at a young age, and then arrives in Navadvip, kind of out of the blue, and becomes part of the group. And the Gurudev says that the Sankirtan movement proper did not begin until Nityananda Prabhu arrives. He is the chief distributor. And Sankirtan, although it's also a sadhana, it's a large part of it is distribution, the distribution of the divine substance. So anyway, we see the beginning of this dynamic between Advaita Acharya and Nityananda Prabhu in this chapter. We see it begin at the house of Advaita Acharya in Shantipur. There at the house of Advaita Prabhu, all the Navadvip devotees, along with Mother Sachi Devi, came to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This house was located at Shantipur. Mother Sachi Devi cooked for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu, and at that time there were many joking exchanges between Advaita Prabhu and Nityananda Prabhu. In the evening, there was a mass sankirtan at the house of Advaita Prabhu, and Mother Sachi Devi gave Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu permission to leave. She requested him to make Jagannath Puri, Nilachala, his headquarters. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu granted his mother's request and, followed by Nityananda, Mukunda, Jagadananda and Damoda, left Shantipur. Bidding farewell to Mother Sachi Devi, they all proceeded toward Jagannath Puri, following the path of Chhatrabhoga. Wow. We'll do a few slokas. Nyasam vidyut pranayo tagoro brindavanam gantumana pramadya radhe brahman shanti purim ayitva lalasa bhaktir ihatam natosmi. After accepting the sannyas order of life, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, out of intense love for Krishna, wanted to go to Vrindavan, but apparently by mistake, he wandered in the land of Radhadesh. Later, he arrived at Shantipur and enjoyed himself there with his devotees. I offer my respectful obeisances to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Brinda. All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all glories to Nityananda, all glories to Advaita Prabhu, all glories to the devotees of Lord Chaitanya headed by Srivas Pandit. Chabisa Vatsara Shesha Ye Maghamasa Tara Shukla Pakshe Prabhu Karila Sannyasa. This is a famous verse. It's one of a handful of verses that give the indication of the date of Mahaprabhu's sannyas, which I'm afraid to say is still an enigma, and I've done considerable research into this to try to find the exact date of Mahaprabhu's sannyas. Nobody really knows. We follow it as a tradition in the Mutt on February the 15th, generally, mid-February. Now, no calendar date in the Mutt is, no festival date or anniversary date is fixed every year. It's all based on the solely lunar calendar, and in this case, lunar dates. We follow the lunar dates, known as tithis. But the 15th of Feb is a different tithi every year. So it's obviously, we're not following a tithi, not observing a tithi. So what marker is it? The Gregorian calendar was not in use in India at this time. So why are we following 15th of Feb every year? Because it's around Makara Sankranti. The sun, Makara Sankranti, Makara is the name for Capricorn. Makara means Capricorn, the sign of Capricorn. And Sankranti means an entry, a movement into. So Makara Sankranti means when the sun enters the sign of Capricorn. And that happens around 15th of Feb. Not always exactly on 15th of Feb, but 14th, 15th, 16th, generally. And so we round it, we average it to the 15th of Feb. We follow that. But admittedly, it's not a precise date. And anyone who's done a little research into this knows that it can't be a precise date because it's going to move a little bit every year. Actually, Makara Sankranti, at the time, some 500 years ago when Mahaprabhu took sannyas, Makara Sankranti was February the 8th. It was about a week earlier. So, technically we're not following the correct date. But this convention was established by who? I don't know. But it was definitely followed by Śrīla Sridhar Maharaj, Param Gurudev. So we follow it with confidence, happiness. February the 15th is Mahaprabhu's sannyas date, Makara Sankranti. Now, there are quite a few astrological considerations that would require a certain background knowledge in astrology to understand. But I've done a fair amount of research into it, and there are conflicting statements in the available literatures, and they cannot all be reconciled with one another. They concern Makara Sankranti, the sun's entry into Capricorn. Makara Sankranti is also when the sun is supposed to reach its most southern declination. It's like midwinter. We call it the winter solstice in the northern hemisphere, and begin its journey north. So Dakshinayana finishes, the downward course of the sun, and Uttarayana begins, the northern motion of the sun. So Capricorn is that most southern point. We have the Tropic of Capricorn. Sun enters into Capricorn, which means it reaches its most southern point. So the line is called the Tropic of Capricorn. So the problem is that the date we use is sidereal Makara Sankranti. It means when the sun enters the sidereal Capricorn. There's two Capricorns, not the tropical Capricorn. So it's not actually Uttarayana. It's not actually when the sun begins its northern journey. That happens on December the 21st every year, right? It's called the summer solstice. That's when the sun, it's called the winter solstice. That's when the sun begins it's midwinter. Sun is at its most southern point of its ayana, its motion, and then it begins Uttarayana, means coming up. So that's December 21st. So Although February 15th, no, January 15th, sorry, getting confused. Although it's January 15th, right? Although January 15th is, not February.
February 15th. Sannyas?
Yeah.
February 15th.
Are you sure?
You were saying that.
I was saying, but now I'm saying I got it wrong. It's January. It's January the 15th that we celebrated, mid-Jan. And because the sidereal date is about 24 days behind the tropical date. So December 21st to January 15th is how many days? It's about 24 days, right? So that January the 15th is 24 days after the sun has actually entered Uttarayana. So we have scriptural references saying that the sun was it was the beginning of Uttarayana, the first day of Uttarayana, that Mahaprabhu takes sannyas, which has powerful astrological signification. It's a day for letting things go and beginning a new chapter, a new trajectory, which is exactly what Mahaprabhu was doing. So it was an intentionally selected time. But finding the exact date, particularly when there's the complexity of we have the sidereal system and the tropical system, what parameters are being referred to in the scriptural text when they say Makara Sankranti and Uttarayana? The two now are a little different, so it's difficult to establish the exact date. And there was also different calendar systems in use. The first day, for instance, it says here in this verse, I know this verse very well, I'll read the translation. At the end of his 24th year, in the month of Magha, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the sannyas order during the waxing period of the moon. Chabisa, 24th. Chabisa Vatsara, at the end of his 24th year. So his birthday is Gorpanim. So 24th year, he's born in 1486. 06. That would be early 1509. End of his 24th year. Early 1509. So that's guaranteed. But exactly when, who knows? It says that in the month of Magha, right? You say, okay, that's easy to determine, but the first point of confusion is what Magha is being referred to. On Param Gurudev's appearance celebration a couple of days ago, I was reading that poem composed by Gurudev, who says, in the month of Ashwin. But we celebrate Param Gurudev's appearance in the month of Kartik. So why is Gurudev saying Ashwin? Did he get it wrong? No. He's referring to a different calendar system of Bengal. So what Magha is being referred to here? What calendar system is in use? What calendar system is Kavirāja Gosvāmī referring to? That needs to be properly identified, or determined, we should say. And it's not so easy. I've looked into it. It's still a bit of an enigma. There's a little further research to do, perhaps. There may be some solution to it, but it seems to be a little bit of an enigma. Anyway, some parameters are given here. The waxing moon, Shukla Pakshe, Prabhu Kadila Sannyas, is when our Mahaprabhu, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu takes sannyas. Gauranga Mahaprabhu takes sannyas. The moon is waxing. It's the month of Magha. It's the end of his 24th year. So 1509, month of Magha, waxing moon. But to make all of those factors fit, it's a little more difficult than you'd imagine. Text 4. Sanyasakari prema veshe chalila brindavan radhadeshe tinadina karila brahman After accepting the sannyas order, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, out of intense love for Krishna, started for Vrindavan. However, he mistakenly wandered about in a trance continuously for 3 days in a tract known as Radhadesh. Purport: the word Radhadesh comes from the word Rastra, or state. From Rastra, the perverted word Radha has come. The part of Bengal on the western side of the Ganges is known as Radhadesh. Another name is Pondradesh. The word Pondra is a perverted form of the word Pendo. It appears that the capital of Rastradesh was situated in that part of Bengal. So, there we go. Srila Prabhupada is clarifying that it's not referring to Srimati Radharani. So, we'll read this. This is the famous verse of the Avanti Brahmana. It's one of the famous Brahmanas mentioned in the Caitanya-caritāmṛta. We have the Avanti Brahmana, we have the Sanodiya Brahmana, we have the Maharashtrian Brahmana. Hey sloka padi Prabhu bhavira aveshe brahmite pavitra kaila sabha radhadeshe. Passing through the tract of land known as Radhadesh, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recited the following verse in ecstasy. Etam sa astaya paratmanishtam adyasitam purvattamer mahadbihi aham taresyami duranta param tamo mukundangri nishivayaiva. As a Brahmana from Avantidesh said, I shall cross over the insurmountable ocean of nescience by being firmly fixed in the service of the lotus feet of Krishna. This was approved by the previous acharyas, who were fixed in the devotion to the Lord, Paramatma, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that verse is from the Srimad Bhagavatam. The purport says, where is it? In connection with this verse, which is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 11:23-58, Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that of the 64 items required for rendering devotional service, acceptance of the symbolic marks of sannyas is a regulative principle. If one accepts the sannyas order, his main business is to devote his life completely to the service of Mukunda, Krishna. If one does not completely devote his mind and body to the service of the Lord, he does not actually become a sannyasi. Yeah, this is an important point. So sannyas is not just about renunciation. There's a difference between ekadanda and tridanda sannyas. Difference between mayavad sannyas and sannyas taken in bhakti, in a bhakti context. So if you ask someone, what is sannyas? And they say, oh, it's a vow of renunciation. I've seen people say this. Sannyasis. Not too many. I heard it like sometimes. It's a vow of renunciation. And I'm like, really? You don't, is that the depth of your understanding of this very profound vow? Renunciation? What about bhakti? Hello? Have you heard of bhakti yoga? Hello? So it's much more than renunciation. Renunciation, anyone who, even a cursory understanding of Param Gurudev's teachings, is aware. Exploitation, renunciation, dedication, both exploitation and renunciation are antithetical to bhakti. So if someone says they take sannyas, it's a vow of renunciation, they're completely missing the point. It's dedication. It's a vow of dedication. And with dedication, naturally, renunciation is simply a side effect, an automatic side effect. But it's far from the goal. In fact, the renunciation becomes applied renunciation, qualified, or appropriate renunciation, which is known as yukta vairagya. That happens naturally when one dedicates themselves. So sannyas is simply a vow of extreme dedication, extreme, lifelong, serious dedication. Nothing to do with renunciation. That just happens automatically as a side effect. We'll finish reading this purport and then that will do us for today. If one does not completely devote his mind, body and service to the Lord, he does not actually become a sannyasi. It is not simply a matter of changing dress. In the Gita, it's also stated, Anashrita karma phalam karyam karma karotiya sa sannyasi cha yogi cha. If one who works devotedly for the satisfaction of Krishna is a sannyasi, one who does that is a sannyasi, the dress is not sannyas, but the attitude of service to Krishna is. The word Paratma Nishta refers to a devotee of Lord Krishna. Paratma, the Supreme Person, is Krishna. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha. Those who are completely dedicated to the lotus feet of Krishna in service are actually sannyasis. As a matter of formality, the devotee accepts the sannyas dress as previous acharyas did. He also accepts the 3 dandas. Say 3 dandas. 1 main and then 2 small. Danda means a stick. Later, Vishnu Swami is the chief acharya of the Rudra Sampradaya. Later, Vishnu Swami, considering that accepting the dress of a Tridandi was paratmanishta, past tense. Later, Vishnu Swami considered that accepting the dress of Tridandi was paratmanishta. So what does paratmanishta mean? Means fixed. Nishta actually means fixed. Paratma refers to the Supreme. So fixed in the Supreme. Therefore, sincere devotees add another danda, the jiva danda, to the existing dandas. The Vaishnav sannyasi is known as Tridandi sannyasi. The Mayavadi sannyasi accepts only 1 danda, not understanding the purpose of Tridanda. Later, many persons in the community of Shiva Swami gave up the Atmanishta, devotional service of the Lord, and followed the path of Shankaracharya. Shiva Swami is mentioning Vishnu Swami, and now he's mentioning one Shiva Swami. Vishnu Swami is in the Rudra Sampradaya, which is Lord Shiva. So perhaps he's also referring to Vishnu Swami here. I'm not exactly sure. Later, many persons in the community of Shiva Swami, it must be, because Vishnu Swami was the initial introducer of sannyas into a Vaishnav school. So the Rudra Sampradaya is a Vaishnav school. It is a school in which Vallabhacharya appeared and promoted. Vallabhacharya is, in fact, the modern acharya of the Rudra Sampradaya. Not much is known about Vishnu Swami. Not much at all. There's not much documented. There's not much information available. But it is known that he introduced some type of sannyas. Although I don't believe it's very prominent now, it may have completely become extinct. But Vallabhacharya rejuvenated the Rudra Sampradaya. He is the modern acharya. In fact, more famous probably than Vishnu Swami in many sectors.
It's confusing when they mention the Rudra Sampradaya and they are Vaishnavas.
Yeah, but Lord Shiva is a Vaishnava, is he not?
Yeah, that's true.
Lord Shiva is a sophisticated character, performed many roles.
Yeah.
Appears as Shankaracharya, but ultimately we see him as a Vaishnava.
Yeah.
Is it not?
Yeah. But his name Rudra is more to the other side, isn't it?
I would think so, yes. Rudra. But still, it doesn't necessarily preclude. Well, obviously, if he starts a Vaishnava Sampradaya, it does not preclude Vaishnavism. Again, Lord Shiva is a sophisticated, complex character. Yes, I've thought about that briefly myself. Like Rudra is typically, we associate Rudra with destruction, actually. The angry form of Shiva that is involved in the destruction of the material creation at the appropriate time.
I thought also like the giver of the birth in the material world, like the root, like the Shiva Lingam.
Yeah, well, that's one function of Lord Shiva.
As root.
Shambhu. Not particularly as Rudra. Rudra is more seen as Lord Shiva as the destroyer.
More Sambhu, huh?
Yes. This is the name, I believe, given in the Brahma Samhita. You look at Brahma Samhita verse 10, and it talks about Hare Krishna. It talks about how Vishnu transforms into Shiva, like milk into yogurt, to perform the function of Lord of the Mayak domain as Shiva, and then of course we have Shakti as Parvati, Durga. Durga matches with Rudra, but Shiva and Shakti. It's so that process is described in the Brahma Samhita, and I believe Shambhu is the term used for Lord Shiva in that capacity. So we have the Rudra Sampradaya, and then Vishnu Swami is the chief acharya. The names can appear sort of a little difficult to harmonize on one level. It's not a particularly... on a deeper level, it's not difficult to harmonize. But Prabhupada says here, the community of Shiva Swami. Now, I'm not sure if this is what's going on here. Then he says, instead of accepting 108 names, those in the Shiva Sampradaya follow the path of Shankaracharya and accept... Oh, I see what's going on. Oh, I see. So when he's referring to Shiva Swami... Oh, actually, I don't know, is he referring to Shankaracharya? Shiva Swami gave up the path of Krishna and followed the path of Shankaracharya. It may, I don't know, this needs to be clarified. It may be a typo. Possible. It could, I think he's in the Shiva Swami Sampradaya. I don't know. Anyway, we'll continue. The Mayavadi sannyasi accepts only one danda, not understanding the purpose of Tridanda. Later, many persons in the community of Shiva Swami gave up Atmanishta, devotional service of the Lord, and followed the path of Shankaracharya. Instead of accepting 108 names, those in the Shiva Swami Sampradaya follow the path of Shankaracharya and accept the 10 names of sannyas. So there's different lists. But these 10 names of sannyas, you'll be surprised to know, they are included in the 108 names of Vaishnava sannyas. 10 names of Shankaracharya's sannyas, Prabhupada might even list them here. He likes to do that sometimes. Give these lists of names. But he doesn't here. He does in other places. But anyway, we have Puri, right? Saraswati, Giri, Parvat, Aranya. That's 5.
Ananda.
No. Ananda is a for the brahmacharis in the Shankaracharya Math. Or it goes before the sannyas name. It is not the actual sannyas name. Like we have Prakash Ananda Saraswati. Brahmananda Puri, right? One of the Das Mula sannyasis of Mahaprabhu, actually. You read the roots of the description of the Mahaprabhu's tree, the tree of Bhakti, Gauranga Mahaprabhu's tree in Adi-līlā. Then you see the roots of the tree, the Das Mula. Is it 9 or 10? I keep on getting mixed up with this. Anyway, 9 or 10. Sannyasis that go to live in Puri, they all have Shankaracharya sannyas names. It was prevalent at the time in India. So Bharati is another one. So we have Keshava Bharati, the guru, sannyas guru of Mahaprabhu, relevant to this chapter. Bharati, Puri, Aranya, Pavat, and Saraswati, etc. There's 10 of them. But if you look in the Gaudiya Kantahara, you'll see 108 sannyas names. So you see, all of our sannyasis will have one of those 108 names. But these 10 names, Giri, Pavat, Puri, Saraswati, etc., they are included in the list of 108. That's why we still get sannyasis with the name Puri and Aranya and Giri, Parvat. Instead of accepting 108 names, those in the Śrīla Sampradaya follow the path of Shankaracharya and accept the 10 names of sannyas. Although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the then existing order of sannyas, namely Ekadanda, he still recited a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam about the Tridanda sannyas accepted by the Brahmana of Avantipur. Indirectly, he declared that within that Ekadanda, one danda, 4 dandas existed as one. Accepting Ekadanda sannyas without paratmanishta, devotional service to Krishna, is not acceptable to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In addition, according to the exact regulative principles, one should add the Jiva Danda to the Tridanda. These 4 dandas, bound together as one, are symbolic of unalloyed devotional service to the Lord. Because the Ekadandi sannyasis of the Mayavad school are not devoted to the service of Krishna, they try to merge into the Brahman effulgence, which is a marginal position between material and spiritual existence. They accept the impersonal position as liberation. Mayavadi sannyasis, not knowing that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was a Tridandi, think of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as an Ekadandi sannyasi. This is due to their vivarta, bewilderment. In Srimad Bhagavatam, there is no such thing as an Ekadandi sannyasi. Indeed, the Tridandi sannyasi is accepted as a symbolic representation of the sannyas order. By citing this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the sannyas order recommended in Srimad Bhagavatam. The Mayavadi sannyasis who are enamored by the external energy of the Lord cannot understand the mind of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We'll continue. We'll finish the purport. It's not too much longer. To date, all the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, following in his footsteps, accept the sannyas order and keep the sacred thread and tuft of unshaved hair, known as a sika. The Ekadandi sannyasis of the Mayavadi school give up the sacred thread and do not keep any tuft of hair. Therefore, they are unable to understand the purport of Tridandi sannyas, and as such, they are not inclined to dedicate their lives to the service of Mukunda. They simply think of merging into the existence of Brahman because of their disgust with material existence. The acharyas who advocate the Daiva Varnashram, the social order of Chatur Varnyam mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, do not accept the proposition of Asura Varnashram, which maintains that the social order of Varna is indicated by birth. The most intimate devotee of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, namely Gadādhara Paṇḍita, accepted Tridanda sannyas and also accepted Madhav Upadhyay as his Tridandi sannyasi disciple. It is said that from this Madhavacharya, the sampradaya known in Western India as the Vallabhacharya sampradaya has begun. We know we read this in the Madhya-līlā, where Vallabhacharya visits Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They first meet later in the Madhya-līlā. We'll read about their meeting when Mahaprabhu is in the Prayag area on his way to Vrindavan. And then they meet more extensively in Jagannath Puri when Vallabhacharya visits. Vallabhacharya is a big guru, big acharya. Anyway, we'll get to it eventually in the Madhya-līlā. He has written a commentary on the Bhagavatam at that time, and he's presenting it to Mahaprabhu for critique, or perhaps for praise. We know the pastime, right? And then, of course, he ends up taking solace with Gadādhara Paṇḍita and receiving initiation from Gadādhara Paṇḍita in Jagannath Puri. It is said that from this Madhavacharya, the sampradaya known in Western India as Vallabhacharya sampradaya has begun. Srila Gopal Bhatta Bose, who is known as a Smrityacharya in the Gaudiya Vaishnava sampradaya, later accepted the Tridanda sannyas from Tridandipad Prabodhananda Saraswati. Although acceptance of Tridanda sannyas is not distinctly mentioned in the Gaudiya Vaishnava literature, the first verse of Srila Rupa Gosvāmi's Upadeshamrita advocates that one should accept the Tridanda sannyas order by controlling the six forces. But Jovegam, Manasakrodha Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Udarupasta Vegam, Etan Vegan, Yovisahita Dira, Sarvam Apimam Prativim Sasishyat. One who can control the forces of the speech, mind, anger, belly, tongue, and genitals is known as a Gosvāmī and is competent to accept disciples all over the world. The followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu never accepted the Mayavad order of sannyas, and for this they cannot be blamed. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted Śrīdha Swami, who was a Tridandi sannyasi, but the Mayavad sannyasis, not understanding Śrīdha Swami, sometimes think that Śrīdha Swami belonged to the Ekadanda sannyas community. Actually, this was not the case. So there we go, some interesting historical information and Siddhantic information from Srila Prabhupada. Jai! Shri Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta ki jai. Normally we read some from Loving Search for the Lost Servant, but we've gone well over time, so we'll skip this for today. Plenty more time to read it. Jai Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Gosvāmī Maharaj Srila Gurudeva ki jai.
Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha.
Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha.
Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha.
Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha.
Gopal Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudan.
Gopal Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudan.
Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan.
Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan.
Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra.
Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra.
Gadādhara Sri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Sabarikara Sisi Guru Kuranga Sundar Radha Kavirāja Ju Ki Jai. Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Gosvāmī Maharaj Ki Jai. Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Rakak Srila Dev Gosvāmī Maharaj Ki Jai. Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Namacharya Sri Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta Ki Jai. Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta London Chapter Ki Jai. Sri Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Sri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Sri Purushottama Dham Ki Jai. Saprasada Sri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai. Saprasada Sri Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. Gold Kartals Ki Jai. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees Ki Jai. Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari.